Iran has made it clear that not one barrel of energy will transit out of the Persian Gulf, which means this is the end of the global economy if this continues. That was Scott Ritter, former UN weapons inspector, speaking this morning as thick black smoke rose from Bahrain's only oil refinery. Not damaged, not disrupted, stopped. Bapco Energies, a 90-year-old company that survived world wars, oil embargoes, and the 2008 financial collapse, issued a legal notice this morning that it cannot fulfill contracts, cannot guarantee deliveries, and cannot tell customers when operations will resume. Force majeure, two words that mean the unthinkable just became real. And the number that captures what this means for every person alive today is staggering. Brent crude oil hit $190.50 per barrel this morning, the highest price since Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022. That's a 60% surge in 10 days, the largest sustained oil price spike in over 50 years. Bloomberg confirmed this morning that $6 trillion in global stock market value has been wiped out since February 28th. Not from one country's markets, from every market simultaneously. Japan's Nikkei plunged 5.2% after falling 7% early in the session. South Korea's Kospi down 6%. Germany's DAX down nearly 3%. But those are just the headline numbers. The real damage is happening beneath the surface. Samsung, one of the world's most valuable technology companies, watched its shares fall 12% as markets opened in Seoul. Not because Samsung did anything wrong, because Samsung needs energy to run its factories, jet fuel to ship its products, and a functioning global supply chain to survive. This morning, the global supply chain is not functioning normally. European natural gas prices surged 20% as traders realized Qatar's LNG shutdown means winter heating costs could spike again. Germany's industrial sector, steel, chemicals, automotive, is staring at energy costs that could force production cuts within weeks. This is not a Middle Eastern problem anymore. This is a planetary economic emergency playing out in real time. And it started with a drone hitting a refinery on a small island in the Gulf that most people couldn't locate on a map before today. The Iranian Shahed drones found Bahrain's Sitra refinery complex in the early hours of March 9th. The strike hit the Al Mayamir facility, the crown jewel of Bapco's recent $7.3 billion modernization program that only reached full capacity in late 2025. This wasn't an aging Soviet-era refinery vulnerable to attack. This was a state-of-the-art facility upgraded specifically to process 405,000 barrels per day, designed to produce the ultra-low sulfur diesel and jet fuel that keeps planes flying and trucks moving across Asia and Europe. The fire erupted at dawn, thick smoke visible from highways across the island kingdom. Every emergency response unit in Bahrain mobilized simultaneously. And by the time the flames were being contained, Bapco had already issued the legal document that sent shockwaves through global energy markets. Force majeure. In normal times, those words appear in contract law textbooks. In wartime, they mean something far simpler. We have been hit. We are down. And the world's fuel supply just got smaller. But here's what makes the Bapco strike different from every other energy facility hit in this war. This was asymmetric warfare executed with precision. Iran's message to the Gulf states wasn't delivered through a diplomat or a press release. It was delivered through the smoke rising from Bapco's facility. The message was specific and public. If you can handle $200 per barrel oil, stay with Trump. If you cannot, separate yourself from this war. Bapco joins a cascading list of Gulf energy giants declaring force majeure in the past 10 days. Data. Qatar. Energy declared it first after strikes on Ras Laffan, the world's largest LNG plant, removing 20% of global liquefied natural gas from the market overnight. Impact. Kuwait followed with production cuts. Saudi Arabia's Ras Tanura refinery, one of the largest on Earth, closed after Iranian strikes. Risk. One by one, the energy infrastructure of the richest oil region on the planet is going dark. And every shutdown pushes oil prices higher, stock markets lower, and the global economy closer to a crisis point it hasn't seen in decades. This is the strategic logic that Bahrain failed to calculate correctly. Bahrain became the first Gulf state to fire missiles directly at Iran during this conflict. That decision, taken by one of the smallest and most exposed countries in the region, opened a door that has not closed since. Iran's response was systematic. Target Bahrain's most valuable economic asset. And this morning, that targeting produced a force majeure declaration that will ripple through global fuel markets for weeks. Here's the oil storage reality that makes the Bapco strike even more consequential. Scott Ritter stated explicitly on March 3rd, Iran has made it clear that not one barrel of energy will transit out of the Persian Gulf. This is the end of the global economy if this continues. He wasn't exaggerating. Qatar's energy minister, Saad Al-Kaabi, gave an interview to the Financial Times this week and said something every oil trader on the planet highlighted immediately. Every Gulf energy exporter that has not yet declared force majeure, we expect will do so in the next few days if this continues, He projected oil could reach $150 per barrel. He warned that all regional producers could be forced to halt production entirely. Not reduce, not cut, halt. And here's the diplomatic pressure that makes that projection credible. France's President Macron called Iran's President Pezeshkian this week, asking him to stop the strikes. Iran's response wasn't a negotiation. It was a question. Did you condemn America when it killed 170 children in a school? Did Europe stand up? Did anyone say the word accountability for what was done to Iran before asking Iran to stop responding? Nobody had a good answer to those questions. The Swiss government formally stated this week that the American-Israeli strikes on Iran constitute a violation of international law. The Pope called for the bombs to stop. The UN Secretary General called the attacks unlawful. Every institution with credibility and independence is saying the same thing. The war's premise was wrong. The execution has produced the opposite of its stated goals. And the economic damages are now global and accelerating. When the energy minister of the world's largest LNG exporter says that publicly, it's not speculation. It's a man with direct knowledge of regional infrastructure telling the world what the trajectory looks like from inside it. The G7 responded by announcing discussions about releasing petroleum reserves through the International Energy Agency, a coordinated reserve release designed to inject approximately 400 million barrels of emergency stock into global markets. But here's the arithmetic problem with that response. Data. 400 million barrels sounds enormous until you do the math. Impact. At current global daily consumption, 400 million barrels buys approximately 10 to 12 days of supply coverage. Risk. After that, the reserve is depleted, and the underlying problem, the Strait of Hormuz closed, Gulf production shutting down, refineries burning, still exists. Japan understood this arithmetic immediately. Japan issued emergency orders today to release oil from its national strategic reserve. The emergency stockpile kept specifically for scenarios where normal supply is disrupted. Japan is entirely dependent on imported energy. Zero domestic oil production. Every factory, every car, every heated home runs on fuel that arrives by ship. When those ships stop coming through the Strait of Hormuz, Japan doesn't have an alternative supply waiting. It has a reserve. And this morning, Japan started spending that reserve. Meanwhile, Mojtaba Khamenei, Iran's new supreme leader selected just yesterday, the son of the man America killed to start this war, has inherited a country whose military is operating at full autonomous capacity. Here's what that means in practical terms. Iran's regional military commanders don't need permission from Tehran to execute strikes. The IRGC operates under what Western intelligence analysts call distributed authority during wartime. Pezeshkian, Iran's civilian president, apologized to Gulf states after some strikes. The IRGC ignored him and struck anyway. The chain of command for peace negotiations and the chain of command for military operations are not the same structure. And right now, the military chain is making the decisions. Gulf states are watching this with increasing alarm. They're being hit by Iranian strikes while simultaneously trying to maintain economic ties with Tehran that predate this war by decades. The UAE still conducts billions in trade with Iran through Dubai. Kuwait shares oil fields with Iranian territory. Qatar and Iran share the world's largest natural gas field. These countries don't want to choose between Washington and Tehran. But Bapco's burning refinery just demonstrated that neutrality is no longer an option. Iran's strategic objective is now explicitly stated. Drive oil to $200 per barrel as the mechanism to make America's continuation of this war economically and politically impossible at home. And the current price is $119. The distance between those two numbers is the distance between where this war is today and where Iran intends to take it. But that's not the part that...
All right, Shalom. The oil price, is now 121 per barrel, if not more now. All right, Shalom. I want to start off by giving all praises, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahasham Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Rachakodash. Double honor unto the apostles and the elders of the great millstone who rule well. Peace and salutations unto the hopeful elect, beginning with the 144,000 men. All right, back with another lesson. The name of this one is the end of the global economy. All right, this is the end of the global economy. And this war here with Iran and the US could very well be the catalyst for the Great Reset. All right, as far as I could see, it's heading in that direction. All right, the crash of the world economies, economic chaos leading to famine, leading to sedition. All right, all the things that we prophesied about from the elder apostles on down, we can see, it could very well come to pass with this here, with the oil price, looking to go up to all the way up to 200 per barrel, which is going to cause serious hyperinflation. And what this was caused by, because America attacked Iran, Now they've put some stringent measures in place and not allowing any commercial ships to go through the Strait of Hormuz. They pretty much close it. All right, they pretty much close it, and that is driving up the oil price because there's no supply. All right, the demand is high, the supply is low, and therefore the price is going to be high. The price of gas is going to go way through the roof, and it's already causing all these stock markets of the world to fall and crash. All right, the guy was talking about different countries and the different stock markets, and it's all falling down right now, like dominoes, and it's very likely once this continues, it's gonna continue to fall. And this is the plan of the global banking elite anyway. Why they did this, and also more importantly, is the plan of our Lord and Savior Yahweh Basham Yahushai. So this is Zephaniah 1, and let's start at verse 10. It says, "And it shall come to pass in that day, saith the Lord, that there shall be noise, in the noise of a cry from the fish gate," right, "and a howling from the second." The fish, when you sell fish, is like a marketplace, right? Right, and it's the same way these markets, these stock markets, that's where they get in the market from, right? When you're in the marketplace to sell vegetables, fruits, fish, meat, and whatnot, so there's gonna be a cry from the fish gate, from the stock markets, and a howling from the second, right, and a great crashing from the hills, different rulerships. All right, but first and foremost, the US dollar is gonna fall. All right, that is what we're witnessing right before our eyes. All right, the US dollar is gonna fall. All right, it says, "Howl, ye inhabitants of Maktesh." And Maktesh was a city, a market city. This was to sell silver, basically going back into your modern day Wall Street in America and the other stock markets around the world, right? The different known as the trading bodies. This city used to trade silver, right? But it's going to collapse. It's about to collapse, right? So these different hills, different world governments, their system is going to collapse because why? It's pegged to the US dollar. Well, which was the strength of the US dollar being petrodollar, it being linked to oil, but it's also with great weaknesses as we could see how Iran is exploiting it. All right, which was a wicked, unfair balance anyway. Right, it's a false balance. A false balance is an abomination to the Lord. So the Lord now is punishing them by that. And when America dollar falls, everything is going to go skyrocketing high. Right, people are going to be in a bad state. You see the price of LNG going up, the price of fuel going up, even diesel, which means what? Food, pharmaceuticals, clothes, everything is going to go skyrocketing high. This is Zephaniah 1 and verse 11. It says, "Howl, ye inhabitants of Maktesh, for all the merchant people are cut down. All they that bear silver are cut off." The US, as I said, the price per barrel skyrockets to 121 per barrel. Gold has spiked to the highest in history now. All right, so pretty much America has failed strategically, but they now gonna pay. The average American citizen, they're gonna pay. All right, they're gonna pay. Why? Because you need money to survive. This is Ecclesiastes 10 and verse 19. It says, "A feast is made for laughter, and wine maketh merry, but money answereth all things." Right? Food, drink, shelter, clothing. All right, the basic physiological needs, and they go into the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right, to survive. And this is where it is. This is what it's doing. So this is going to cause the decay of the US dollar. The US dollar is going to go down, and as US dollar falls, the other fiat currency is going to fall. And basically, when the system crashes, these devils going to come in now and say, okay, the system has crashed. We need to reset. We're going to go to digital currency, but not normal digital currency. It's going to be a centralized digital currency, which going to basically ultimately culminate in the MOTB, right? The RFID micro chip being pushed. Okay, this is what it is. So let's get this here. The book of Let's see. Book of James 5 and verse 1. It says, go to now, ye rich men, weep and howl for your miseries that shall come upon you. Right? The rich men of America, right? The scripture in Revelation 18 goes into the luxurious lifestyle. All right? You know how they live deliciously. Or the Lord is gonna pour it upon you. In fact, let me just go there real quick. It says Revelation 18 and Revelation 18 and verse let me start a little higher up. Yeah, let's start off verse 2, Revelation 18 and 2. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, right? That's the the angel. It says, Babylon the Great is fallen. Which Babylon the Great is America, right? Is fallen and has become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and a cage of every unclean and hateful bird. For all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth are waxed rich. See that? Merchants of the earth wax rich. You go into the Ammonites, the Moabites, the so-called Japanese, Chinese, the Ishmaelites. All right, they wax rich through what? Through the abundance of her delicacies. You know, extravagant luxuries. It says, and I heard another voice from heaven saying, come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins, and that ye receive not her plague. This is when the Lord comes and literally takes and beams up our people into the chariots, which are the so-called UFOs or UAPs. Right? It says, for her sins have reached unto heaven, and power had remembered her iniquities. Reward her even as she rewarded you, and double unto her according to her works. To the cup which she hath filled to her double. And she's already begun to get some of that pain. Right? She's been with this Iran conflict. It says how much she had glorified herself and lived deliciously. Right? So she glorified herself and lived what? Deliciously. So much torment and sorrow give her, for she saith in her heart, I sit a queen and am no widow, and shall see no sorrow. Therefore shall the plagues come in one day, death and mourning and famine. So this is what's coming for her. Death, mourning, and famine. And she shall be utterly burned with fire, for strong is Yahweh power who dreadeth. Don't think about it. All these this lack of resources, lack of oil, not enough money to everything going up, including the pharmaceutical drugs, the people who suffer from all manner of diseases, diabetes, high blood pressure, whatnot. And fair use. This video is only for educational purposes only. I'm not giving any medical advice or any advice, right? So this is it here. It's telling you plain. Go to now, you rich men, reap and howl, because it's going to come upon you. It's going to be a lot of unalive and a lot of death. A lot of people are going to do. Anybody who's this to the east, they're gonna be dropping. Right? People are going to be famished, not enough food to eat. All right? This is why you have to seek wisdom now. Seek the Lord, the truth of the Lord, Yahweh Ba'asham Yahushai. It says, continuing down, James 5 and 2, your riches are corrupted, and your garments are moth-eaten. Your gold and silver is cankered, is what become what? Worthless. Can you go into that word cankered? Let's see what it means. Okay?
Cankered.
Something diseased, ulcerated, figurative, corrupted, and morally decayed. Alright, so it's cankered. And this situation here that's going on in Iran with the Strait of Hormuz is going to show that even more. Right? It's cankered. And the rust of them shall be a witness against you, and shall eat your flesh as it were fire. Right? So eventually they're going to turn all these nations, including the allies to America, the European Union and NATO, those nuclear powers, going to turn and shoot missiles on her. Right? You have heaped treasure together for the last days. And you can see now that that's going to happen, because all these nations now are playing the game. They're playing the hedging game. They're hedging to wherever they get the benefits. They don't care that America has supplied them with money and whatnot and resources and defense. Wherever they're getting the resources, which is what's happening now with Russia. Russia now stopping sending oil to these countries. They're desperate. So they need Russia. They need Iran to allow the oil to flow for them to stay alive. This is how it's going. All right. So they're gonna turn to Russia. They're gonna turn to Russia and they're gonna unite with them. That's what's gonna happen to bring to pass the prophecy in Revelation the 17th chapter, where they're gonna burn out with fire. All right. So things are coming together like never before. All right. James 5:3, your gold and silver is cankered, and the rust of them shall be a witness against you, and shall eat your flesh as it were fire. You have heaped treasure together for the last days. Behold, the hire of the laborers who have reaped down your fields, and which is now you're throwing these jakes in concentration camps with ice. Right? Which of you is kept back by fraud? They weren't making much money anyway. Right? The Northern Kingdom. So Jake, who was working on these farms, etc., they were being ripped off, and it's still happening. They're recapturing Jake and putting them back to work for a smaller wage. This is the evil that's taking place with these devils, these Edomites, right? It says, behold, the hire of the laborers who have reaped down your fields, which is of you kept back by fraud, crieth, and the cries of them which have reaped are entered into the ears of the Lord of Sabaoth. You have lived in pleasure on the earth and been wanton. You have nourished your hearts as in the day of slaughter. You have condemned and killed the just, and he does not resist you. So best believe the judgment is coming. Babylon the Great, the judgment is coming. Right? And the judgment of all you who don't listen, who don't believe. Right? You're going to know that a prophet have been among you in that day. You're going to know who the prophets, the true prophets of the Lord, beginning with our elder apostles on down. All right? So with that, hey, this is the end of the global economy and the beginning of the reset. And this is the Lord's reset. Not the reset of these banks. I mean, they think so, but this is the Lord's reset. All right? So remember that. Till next time, this is the end of the global economy. Shalom, wa harag, babal.